Welcome to the Social Propertypreneur Podcast. And here is your host, social media queen, property investor, and entrepreneur, Laura Muse.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the live social media Propertypreneur podcast with me, Laura Muse. Today I am joined with Craig Phillips, who I've known for quite a while. So I've known Craig since the beginning of my journey, which we've got a funny story to tell you about that. But Craig used to be in the Navy. Now he does new builds. He does incredible things in property, and he's going to be sharing that with us today. So welcome, Mr. Craig Phillips.
I don't know about round of applause, but cheers for having me anyway.
Everyone gets a round of applause, Craig.
Oh, it's not just me then. No, right. Fair enough.
How are you?
Yeah, good. Just keeping busy, to be honest. I mean, the whole situation with the world at the minute has just gone crazy, but for some reason, or just the way it happens, we've just been really busy. So it's just about juggling lots of things, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And it's just been crazy. We've done some really good things, and we've struggled in other places. So yeah, more than happy to share everything.
Well, before you do, can you just tell the people a little bit about your background, kind of where you were, how you got into property, kind of what was that trigger point to think you were going to go into property full time?
Yeah. So I lived in Oldham, and I was working in a factory, and I just decided, no, I don't fancy doing this for the rest of my life. I can do a little bit better. So I joined the military. I was in the Navy for about 10 years, more or less to the day. And during that time, just went around, saw the world, did some really cool stuff. But unfortunately for us, when I was in the Navy, it was just before 9/11. So 9/11 happened, and then the whole world changed in it. So I spent a lot of time out in the Gulf, constantly out in the Gulf and stuff. So did loads of stuff out there. Did get to the Far East a couple of times, so got some stories about there, but not on Facebook. No way.
That's another podcast.
Yeah. And then I got headhunted, and I ended up working for a couple of government agencies, and just did that for about 10 years as well. But during that time frame, because I was employed by the Americans, I thought, I'm a bit nervous because Donald Trump was starting to come in, and he was starting to say like American jobs for American people. And I was like, well, I'm an American billet, so I'm getting paid by the Americans as a Brit. So I was like, I've got to start looking for something else. So I just started dabbling in property. I mean, we'd had a few buy-to-lets anyway. Right. And when I moved from the Navy over to Harrogate, we kind of rented some out, and we just made loads of mistakes, rented it to friends, all that kind of stuff. Spent like 14 grand on a back garden renovation.
It makes you cringe.
Yeah. It does. It's absolutely manic. But we just made some really expensive mistakes, and I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this properly and professionally, then we're going to go and get educated. So that's what we did. We went to a couple of companies, and we eventually went to Progressive. That was our second company we went to, and we did some stuff with them, did their mentoring packages and things like that. And it's kind of just taken off from there, really.
Cool. So yeah. How long have you been doing it full time?
Well, it depends on it. I mean, what's full time when you're talking property? I mean, there's like 27 hours a day, 9 days a week in it. It's just nuts. So I would say that I first invested in property back in 2003 with some of the buy-to-lets, and our first house that we bought that we now rent out and we've still got. And I'd say we started in July 2016. I went on my first course, or my first little trickle down event that you end up going to one event and then another and then another. But that was with a different company. So yeah, 2016, and then I think that was it. So relatively new to it, to be honest. And there's people who've been watching this who've been doing it for years and years. I just think that maybe, and what you find is in these kind of property environments, there seems to be a lot of ex-military around, or current military. There's tons of them. Yeah. And I think it's because when the proverbial hits the fan, there's a lot of perseverance and kind of grit and determination. And I just think that maybe they've got used to just doing things under stressful environments, and then they just get on with it. Whereas I'm not saying, obviously there's people who've not been in the military who can do that as well. I'm just saying it seems to just be a more common trait in their character, and they just get on with it. And I think that helps sometimes. As you know, Laura, you and James have been through some ups and downs as well. And
I've
sometimes...
not been in the military though.
No. But what I'm saying
My
is,
grit's just been coming from living with my husband.
well, I talk to James more often than I talk to you, and I think it's the other way around.
Probably.
Yeah. But I think that's what it is. I think a lot of successful people, I would say, in property anyway, just have this the perseverance to get through the hard times. Yeah. When it's very, very easy just to say, you know what, I give up. I'm fed up with it. I can't do it anymore, because no matter, even if it's a buy-to-let or it's trying to build 42 apartments or something, there's always something that comes up that's just like, where did that come from? And it's just, there's so many times you can kind of get kicked in the stomach. And it's like, but like I said, it's just perseverance and taking action that gets you through it.
No, and I do completely agree with you. I mean, obviously we met at the very beginning of my property journey. Should we share a little story?
It's incorrect, but
it's not incorrect.
I'll let you say it for the audience anyway. You can just make it up. Just go for it, and I'll just agree with it.
Okay. So I attended my first property course in September 18. On the evening, we went to dinner, and I was sat opposite Craig. And I was saying to Craig, you must see, you must be able to identify people who are going to make it in the room and people who are. And Craig went, oh yeah, there's that person over there, James. I didn't really notice you though. And I thought, from that day on, I thought, you will.
I'll prove to you. I'll prove to you that. Yeah, exactly. But
so Craig's,
But for you to say I didn't notice you with somebody who's got a bigger personality as you and is basically as loud as you, that's absolute rubbish. And there's no way, that's not possible.
No, because at that time I didn't know anything about property. I hardly said anything, so right. I kind of get that. But I did think, I'll show you.
Yeah. Stick this.
So tell me a little bit about what you're doing now. So you do quite a few different things, few different strategies. Can you tell us about them and what you've been up to recently and how it's developed, really? Because it's developed quickly it's developed a lot in a very short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it feels like ages, because when you're dealing with it day after day after day, and it's like, and it kind of grinds it, and you think, oh my God. So when you just think like, what is it? Basically 4 years now, and you think it just seems to have taken absolutely forever. But when you speak to people who've been in the property world for like 20, 30 years, they think 4 years you're a newbie, which is right, because you always find that level, don't you, where you don't know anything. No matter where you are, you find that level, and you're like, oh my God, I need some help. But I started off, I had no money in the bank. I started deal sourcing. It was tough. I didn't like it. Because you kiss a lot of frogs, and then it was, for me personally, I just wasn't right for it. There's people I know that are amazing deal sources and deal packages and stuff, so I've got no complaints as long as they're like doing it properly and they're doing it like compliantly and stuff. But it was just, I was working full time as well at the time, so you know what it's like. It's just doing viewings in the evening, and it was just tough, and I thought, this is too slow for me. So again, I was worried about my contract, so I thought I need something bigger. I got to look at a site, and by that time I joined the VIP program. So I went to look at a site or something I was going to package to somebody else, and it was like a couple of prefabbed units that had been left to rack and ruin or something. Anyway, long story short, because I don't want to take too much time, is the fact that I decided that I was going to have a go at developing. So, oh my God. So I will always give a shout out to people who helped me. So like, I got up on stage at the VIP thing, when they used to do the deal sourcing, the deal
clinic.
Yeah, deal clinic. So I got on there and I was doing that, and I was like, to be honest, I don't know what I've got. And somebody gave me a card, and he said, just speak to Cal. And it was Cal Candola. Yeah. And she's got this like amazing team based down in Leicester, and she plugged me into their architects. It was just, we were going to initially do SIPs because there was a SIP element there, and we were going through planning. We got refused planning. We finally got planning. We had to do 2 option agreements across 2 different sites and merge them together. It was horrific, and it just took forever, absolutely forever. Learned a lot, frustrated a lot of people, borrowed a lot of money, because as you know, developments, when the upfront costs, and what a lot of people don't realize is, even to get going, you've got to be like we could throw any number. Let's just say 20 grand. You could need 20 grand to get going with your architect's fees, your planning consultants and everything, your surveys, everything like that. And it was just like, the more and more I got into it, like I felt like the deeper into trouble I was getting. I mean, we turned it around and everything worked out well in the end. But it was that's where my trajectory was. So I started doing that. And like I said, and Cal and the team were amazing. And then it was a matter of just doing other things. So I got talking to a builder, and that we set up a development company. We're doing some flips and stuff in there, and then we kind of parted ways just because we wanted different things. He wanted to be quite like local and renovations and stuff, and I just wanted something big, and I wanted to build a company. And it was at that point. So then I went and acquired a site in York for like 450 grand or something to go and build 4 houses. Speaking to Michael Primrose, he sorted all the finance for me, and then I got investor finance in there and stuff. So before you knew it, I had 2 sites that were kind of starting, and then I started learning about pre-commencement conditions, and then having to go from one lending product to another, and valuations and down vals and everything that comes along with that. But in the meantime, it's like, well, I need to obviously do a cash flow strategy as well. So we started just doing some more buy to lets, started dip my toes into service departments a little bit. Everybody does, right? I mean, and
we did. Well, you know that story.
Yeah, so I'm not here to criticize any strategy, because they all work if it's right for you. That's it. So I dipped my toes into it. And with SA, you either do it big or you don't do it at all. It's not profitable in the middle. You've got to kind of scale that, and you've got to like get cleaning companies in and your linens and all that. If you're trying to do it on your own and your own cleans running around, it's a nightmare. So we decided that it's probably not going to be for us. And especially when I was doing things like you do a development site and you think, right, how much do I earn from my SA unit? Maybe £1,000 a month after costs in a good month, right? Yeah. So, and I know there's people out there doing better than that, but anyway, I can talk about my numbers. And then you think, all right then, but if I get a development site and I can give myself a finder's fee, and I can pay myself like a project director's fee out of the finance, but put it up front and pay myself £1,000 a month and stuff. And it's like, what? So for me, it was like, I'm just going to do that.
No brainer.
So I'm going to go away. I'm going to go and pay myself all these fees, legally, as long as the lenders agree to it, obviously. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go and make 200 and 300 grand a site instead, without having to clean and go into minging beds and stuff on. So when the cleaner said they can't turn up because somebody's locked the keys in the office or something stupid like that. So, and we just got on with it. So, and it was at that time then that I decided that I was going to have to build a company and do it properly. So not just a strategy, but build like a proper property company.
Yeah.
So we had different elements of it. We've got the development company. We've got we've got a company for flips. We've got a company that's got portfolios in it. We buy portfolios now, which is quite handy to do, especially when they're already cash flowing. You can prove ASTs. You can do all that kind of stuff. It's really good. So we've got a few strategies around that. Yeah, and then I learned about debentures. So so when I wanted like a holding company and 2 SPVs, one for holding, one for trading, and then somebody puts a debenture against one of your companies, so you have to set up another company, and before you know it, you've got 5 companies wide. So it's just that kind of stuff. So now we're in a pretty good space. We're doing all right.
Well, talk to me a little bit more about your team, because you've got a really powerful team around you that you work with. Like, obviously, when people first start out in property, that's one of the hurdles. Could you just talk through that and how that come around? Because there's some real power players in that group of people.
Yeah, and I'll mention them all by name as well. So it's because I'm quite open and honest. I mean, when people say that, I set the company up. And I was in a partnership with Tom, a builder friend of mine, and obviously that didn't quite work out. So it started being mine again. And I thought, right, the temptation is to go and try and do everything yourself. But you can't be a master at everything. Absolutely. Well, it's difficult to be good at one thing, never mind 7. So I was like, I need to plug these gaps. So I identified weaknesses in my skill set. And I thought, right, what do I need? So mine is definitely, a weakness of mine is definitely numbers. I'm not into spreadsheets. I'm not into that. So we went and got a guy called Steve Wallace. He was an ex risk assessor for a Maltese bank. He worked in London for years and years. He became a non-executive director and a shareholder in the company.
Right.
I needed proof of concept. I needed somebody who'd been doing it for a long time. So there's a mentor of mine called John Philbin. So he's been doing it for years. You know John, right? So
Yeah.
he's been doing it for like 30 years. He's got a big portfolio. He knows his stuff. He's a wheeler dealer kind of. He just does deals all the time. So he's been my sounding board really. And then I thought, right, I need another builder, obviously. So we got a guy called Noel Minikin, and he was local to Harrogate. He's a contractor that has his own contracting company. He's a shareholder. And one of the things I wanted people to be shareholders in the company. I didn't want them just to be there being paid as a consultant or anything. Yeah, because I wanted them to have a vested interest in the company. So everybody that we've got involved in our company is a shareholder. So that we're all pushing the same way. We've got a guy called Jim Kane, who's local to Harrogate. He does a lot of networking, and he's got he used to run a marketing company in Dubai. So he's got a network out in Dubai, and he's just a really lovely bloke who just can connect people. We're currently going through a project at the minute where I've just left him in charge of it, and he's doing really, really well. So that's a project to buy a plot of land with planning for four units. It's going to work out really well. But Jim's taking the lead with that, and he's talking to my accountant and my solicitors and stuff. So it's really good. We've got a guy called Jonathan Millay, who used to be a land buyer for Dutchy Homes, for McCarthy and Stone. I think there's another local one, but I always forget. But McCarthy and Stone are the bigger ones. So he's got the ear of the MDs and things of the big companies, and he just brings us opportunities all the time. We've got Michael Primrose as a shareholder and a director now, so our funding's looked after. So I mean, it really is great who we've got around that table. Or around the Zoom call at the minute, because we're around the table, right? So if you look at the company as like from an outsider, you think, right, so buildings covered, you've got your networking more or less covered, your finances, both risk assessment and your brokering's covered, you've got proof of concept and like an old head with John and stuff who's been doing it for years. So, and then you've got me, who's just the gobby guy at the front who just makes things happen. That's all I do. I talk and I just do stuff. I have no other skills apart from that. That's it.
Well, you've managed to pull that a group of people around the table, so I think you're good at something, Craig.
Bribery.
What's your, obviously, for a lot of new people, like we've already kind of touched on this, a lot of people don't follow it through. They kind of try it for a few months and kind of put it to the wayside. They just don't have, maybe they get up and go to sustain it or whatever that reason might be.
Yeah.
What's your advice to newbies getting into property? What would you advise them to do and what not to do?
I would say if you're going to look at a strategy, because everybody talks about doing specific strategies, is look at a strategy and find out what you're actually going to enjoy doing. I think me and you have both been down the rabbit holes of I'm doing something purely for money, and then you find out you absolutely hate it and you can't get out of it quick enough, but you've signed a 3-year company let agreement and you're stuck in it for 3 years. Not saying that that's happened, but I would say that find something that you're passionate about, find something that you will really enjoy. If you don't enjoy the stress, don't do developments. If you don't like running around, I wouldn't do SA. But then again, if you're a systems person and you enjoy putting systems and processes and everything in place, and I'm not one of those people, then SA can really work for you. If you're able to do, I've seen some amazing people do some amazing things with regards to on a computer and everything's clicked and automated and cleaners and I was like, I just can't. I don't have the inclination to do that. I would say if you're brand new and you've never done anything at all, never compare yourself to somebody else.
Yeah.
And I would say just cut your teeth on something really small because you might not like it. So let's just say you've got a couple of grand saved up and you want to do one buy to let, and ballpark figures, let's just say it's 100 grand buy to let in Oldham, right? So you can get them day in, day out £550 a month, £600 a month, 2 up, 2 down. Nice and easy, right? It just makes sense. So you can realistically, even if you're not trying to do anything fancy, you're just doing just putting money in and leaving it. So you put 20 grand in, 25 grand in and leave it there. Just go through the mechanics of doing it. Yeah. Speaking to solicitors, getting your surveys done, speaking to accountants, setting up a limited company. I mean, and if you can't do that, property's not going to be for you for the long run, or pay somebody else to do it. If you want to do it and you've got a bit of cash, pay somebody else to do it. If you don't want to do those things, I would just say, just cut your teeth on something small first. Don't do what I did and start a development after packaging about 2 deals. It's an absolute nightmare.
We did that though. We bought, before we even went to Progressive or anything, 2 buy-to-lets. James did a new build, 2 shops, 2 flats, just straight in there.
Yeah, you've got the advantage, and what you always, I mean, we've spoke about this as well, is James sits in the background, but James has got such an amazing kind of history and experience of doing this for years and years and years. And we talked about this, didn't we? Said you should leverage that more often as well. So, I mean, I
am trying my best to get him to do things, Craig, but you know what it's like.
No, it's like pushing a noodle.
Drag him.
It's rubbish.
It's like, no, you do that bit. I'll do the figures and the builds.
Because you know what he'll be like now, he'll be watching this, he's like, bloody do not.
I'm surprised he's not banging on the window.
But, yeah, go on.
So obviously we're going to have to talk about what's currently been happening. Obviously now the property market is back up and running. How has it affected your business? What have you managed to keep going on with, and what's kind of stalled a little bit? Do you mind chatting through that?
Yeah, and like I said, it's always the rough for the smooth. I just like to tell people exactly it is, because it's like everybody always it's like gamblers, isn't it? They always tell you when they win, they never tell you when they lose. It's true, right? So what happened when COVID hit? We were about 2 weeks, I would say. Well, probably ask Michael Primrose, but I was about 2 weeks away from potentially securing my debt finance on one of my sites. We were on a bridge and we were ready. We were trying to get into it, and then obviously everything just shut down. So then we went over the bridge end. In fact, I think we'd already gone over the bridge and we were servicing the debt, but the bridging company were happy with the fact that we were trying to get through debt finance. So then so that shut down. Valuations just weren't happening. I couldn't get anybody in. And then we were just kind of left in limbo. In the meantime, we've managed to put that onto another bridging product. Which is not a good thing, because I mean, obviously the costs incurred in that, but what we couldn't afford to do was have the initial bridging company calling that debt. So we had to, and it was like, it's going to cost you X amount of thousands of pounds in order to get it over the line and get yourself some breathing space. So we had to do that, and we've done that during COVID. We initially shut down all our sites, as everybody did, when the government gave those warnings, and then it was because we use a lot of subcontractors. We use both on the bigger sites we've got main contractors, and on the smaller sites we've got subcontractors. And we quickly realised all the subcontractors have been telling the government that they've been earning £7,000 a year for the last 12 years. So they weren't able to kind of claim anything. So they were desperate to work. So I was a little bit nervous about it, because you always want to be seen to do the right thing. So we initially shut down the site, and then they were basically saying, no, we want to get to work and everything. So we then bought an additional, welfare unit to put on the site to give space and everything in order to do that. That cost me about £1,650 or something. But we did that, and that site stayed going on. Obviously, they had the choice of coming to work or going home. Yeah. And we've probably lost about half the manpower. Which is fair enough, but the ones who wanted to be there, they did the social distancing. We still had a QS come out during the thing for our debt finance tranche payment. She came around. We did the social distancing and things like that. So it's like everything, isn't it? You just find out what people are willing to do, try and do things legally, and then just get on with it. So those have been the negative things. Another negative thing was we were just starting the process of refinancing 14 units, and obviously the loan to values went from, we were trying to get as much money out as we could, so we were looking for 75 to 80% loan to value, quite highly geared, but we'd only purchased them recently, so We were going to do that, and then all of a sudden the loan to values are like 60% of purchase price, not market value, and you're like, it's like what we were expecting 300 grand to be sat in the bank, and then all of a sudden we're talking about having a shortfall and not being able to pay off the initial borrowing. So it looks like we're all right with that one now.
So what's happened with that one?
That's just still going through. We're still going through mortgages. I felt sorry for the mortgage broker on that one, which isn't Michael, because obviously Michael just does commercial finance and stuff. It was a proper, it's a buy-to-let mortgage provider, broker. And I felt sorry for him because every day we were trying to get something agreed in principle, like the AIPs were coming through, and then they'd change because this lender had stopped, or this lender said no new business for 30 days and things. So he was trying to do structured deals on quicksand, basically, and it was really tough. And it wasn't until, I think it was yesterday. Yesterday, actually, we did the numbers and we actually pulled the trigger on actually getting those applications in. So that's taken a while.
Stressful.
Yeah, stressful, that one.
I think you like stress though, because every time I speak to you, you're doing some big deal and it's really stressful, and it's always to do with finance.
Well, one thing is that whenever you're doing a deal, it's always around finance, and it's no matter what. It's either your finance, investor finance, or some sort of institutional finance. So it's always stressful. I completely think you've read me wrong. I do not enjoy it one little bit.
Sure you do.
I must admit, I enjoy doing deals. I enjoy that. I enjoy the acquisition part of the deal and structuring it weirdly. Doing deals with people, I enjoy that. But not the mechanics of actually getting it over the line. I hate that stuff. But because
that's James's department.
But because I'm like, I hate saying it, but like the guy in charge, and it's like my signatures with one or two other directors or whatever. Having to go through those forms, I just wish I could like pay somebody to do it for me, but apparently that's not legal. So, but on the flip side, some of the things that have happened that have been good. Well, I do, without sounding callous, I don't mean to sound wrong.
But positive. Yeah,
the positive things that have happened while COVID has been going on is probably the best way to say it. Is that we agreed a flip. It was on the market for £300,000. It was a probate. It'd already been on the market for a while, and just before COVID hit, we agreed 258. So you're talking like £42,000 reduction, and that was before COVID, just because it had been on the market. Then we were looking at using a mix of investor funds and some bridging in order to do the refurb and just sell it. And then it just got, the funding got a little bit difficult with regards to how much we'd need to find. You know, you always need that equity tranche, don't you? You always need that little bit. And we just couldn't get it done. So, and we had an investor that was originally going to give us like £250,000. And then he said, I'm nervous about it, quite rightly. He's obviously like, so he reduced it to £200,000. He was like, okay, so we'll need to do something else. And then just before he said, are we still interested? He said, no, I'm not putting any money in. So it's like, okay. So we went then back to the vendors, who's obviously somebody in charge of the probate, the executor of the will or whatever it was. And we said, listen, we can't do 258. We just can't. So we offered them 3 because we never want to screw anybody over ever, because there was enough money in it for us anyway.
Yeah.
We said, we can't do 258. We just can't get the borrowing against it that we need to get this over the line. So what I said is, I'll pay you 220 and I'll do a deferred payment of £38,000 for 6 to 8 months. So in 6 to 8 months after we've done the refurb and hopefully sold it or whatever, or we can refinance it, you'll get the extra 38,000. But their solicitor said that recommended against it.